Hey there, it's been a while. It's been a good, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, maybe more since I did one of these. Been thinking about it, trying to figure out what to say into these things, what do I want to do with this stuff? Am I trying to build a following, or am I just exercising demons, or who knows what, man? So I guess one thing I've been working on lately is I've been doing a lot of gesture drawing and life drawing, and this is nothing new for me. Um, I've been doing this practice regularly for at least 20 years since I started college and I took my first life drawing class. It was something I adored, but I never really got into it in the sense that I was trying to draw like really good life drawings or portraits. I mean, I did a little bit of that kind of stuff where you're learning how to do finished pieces out of life drawings, but most of what I was always trying to do, since I wanted to draw comics, I wanted to do, in the art world they call it invention. It's kind of an obvious name, but it's pretty crazy how many people who are like really truly incredible life drawing artists who can do some insanely beautiful figure work kind of can't invent. Like they can barely draw these things from their imagination because they're so used to looking at reference images or models or whatever that they have a hard time coming up with figures. And in drawing comics, doing too much of that can really put a crutch under your arm. Like if you get to where you can't make figures without a reference, then you will spend just a terrible amount of time when you should be drawing just looking for images, or you know and when you can't find the image, your your weaknesses or your shortcomings really stand out. Now, that's not to say I don't think you should trace photos. I've done it. I do it a lot, especially with vehicles. And there are times when I just can't get the pose right, or I can't visualize the angle or something like that, where I will just break down and open up a 3D model and just get it done. Because I have already, in my mind, it's all about time for me. I'm not a fast artist. I'm the kind of guy who lingers on stuff, and I'm not really good at penciling super light and finding the art in the inks. For me, inking is just about like line weights and shadows and things like that. So I have to pencil fairly far into the process because I there's like I don't know if it's a confidence issue, but there's like this sort of, I have to know what the finished piece is gonna look like, even if it, and it's weird, right? Because even if I ink off of a pretty loose piece of, even if I ink off of something that was not penciled too far, like sometimes, like even if it looks comes out good, there's a part of me that feels weird because I felt lost the whole time I was working. And even if I find my way, there's this part of me that wonders if the piece isn't as good as it could have been because I just sort of stumbled my way to the finish line. And it's a really weird thing that I deal with in drawing. It's one of those struggles, I love that word, that I feel in making art that I don't know if other people feel. It's it's it might be a toxic trait or something, right? Because I feel like in most other disciplines and most other hobbies or drives or whatever you want to call it, if you are struggling to do something, like I have a friend who is a really incredible skateboarder. He at one point was pretty close to going pro, and he tried to really make that happen. So he's a really good skateboarder, and me and him have had these conversations. Like it's really funny how he can me and him can talk about skateboarding and trying to draw comics and find this sort of common ground. It's like, oh, that's that struggle you're talking about. That's I feel that completely, but in my own realm. It's kind of funny how many parallels you can find with with other people. Same thing goes with wrestlers. I've talked to some people who were in like indie wrestling, and there's this sort of there are a lot of interesting and unexpected parallels in those kind of drives and those kind of pursuits. So anyway, what I was saying is, so me and this skateboarder buddy of mine will be talking, and he'll say something like, and I'll say something to him like, even if it comes out great, sometimes I still hate it because I know how much I struggled to get there. And he says something similar to that, where it's like, yeah, you sort of beat yourself up because you're like, I should have been able to do this. And I feel like there's a lot of people out there, like the general sort of mentality towards these kind of things are you get back up on the horse, no matter how many times you fall, and you make it happen, and you're supposed to celebrate that you succeeded finally, right? I'm not arguing that at all. I think that's exactly how you should look at it, but my toxic trait is I beat myself up for not getting it right the first time, or not being able to figure it out faster or whatever. Like I'm sure I'm not the only artist who feels this. Especially when time is of the essence and you're like, you know, drawing comics is insanely time consuming, and it especially, for me, it feels like a lot of wasted time when I had to draw the same figure like 6 or 7 times to get the pose right, or when I had to try out 10 or 15 different poses instead of like I know a lot of other artists and a lot, especially pro artists who've been doing this for a long time. They have these sort of stock poses, like no slag against like Jim Lee or whatever, but if you look at a Jim Lee comic, you will see the same poses over and over and over and over again. And I'm not saying I don't have those, but I feel like I don't have those. And a lot of times I wish I did have those. I wish I had a lot more muscle memory when it came to this stuff, because a lot of this stuff, man, it never stops feeling challenging. It never stops feeling like something that's hard to do. And I know that kind of feels maybe it's counterintuitive, right? Because I look at the stuff that I can do now versus the stuff I couldn't do, you know, uh, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or whatever. And maybe it's like hair growth. You don't notice it until you've put on some length. But like, I guess I'm not sure what I'm trying to say there. There's this. I'm definitely better than I was a decade ago. I'm. I don't know if I'm faster than I was a decade ago, but I know I'm more accurate. I know the muscles more. I know that my figures are a little more flow. They have a little more gesture, a little more flow, a little more energy. I know these things are true, and also I know that they probably look better and are more pleasing to the eye, but they don't feel easier. Like it's just as hard for me to knock these out as it was to knock out the stuff I was doing 10 years ago. And if I look back on the, the, the figure work I was doing that long ago, I will probably be able to see growth, but I don't know if it's obvious which ones are better or which ones aren't because gestures are a different thing. These are about finding poses. And honestly, for me, in drawing comic pages, I feel like the biggest challenge I have is finding poses. If I can get the wireframe down for the pose, the details are fairly easy. It's this stuff. And since I draw people in clothes more than I draw like spandex suit kind of stuff, I'm more worried about getting the figures, the gestures right. I'm more worried about getting the pose right than I am the anatomy. Because, if I have the wireframe or the mannequin or whatever you want to call it, if I have that part correct, then I can lay anatomy down fairly easy. It's just it's just this stuff. Like it never stops feeling hard. Like this thing I'm doing right here, where I'm building this sort of this back, this image from behind, and I use a box to indicate the pelvis and the ribs. For some reason, that bean shape, that sort of oval, the oval of the rib always feels daunting. Always. It always feels hard to get right. And then it just, if I have, like, I have so much trouble getting that first thing, the first hurdle is going to be those two forms. And I see artists that have been doing this a long time, guys I admire. There's like a Mike Hoffman is one I've been watching a lot lately. I picked up all his not all of his books, a ton of his books on Amazon. They're really cheap and they're pretty minimalist as far as content goes, but the information is stuff that I've it's not new information, it's just old information that has been presented in a way that I've never really thought about. And he's a guy, I think he's been doing it for a very long time. I think he's like a Frazetta contemporary. He was doing like the paperback novel kind of stuff too. So he's one of those, and his drawing books are very simplistic, but the information is is very useful, and it's almost Spartan in its simplicity. So if you ever want to check out some cheap instructional books, Mike Hoffman is a really good source. You can get most of his stuff on Kindle for anything from $10 to $5. Like you can get his books for about, I think, what did I get? I got The Secrets of Drawing for like $9 or whatever. Very good stuff. Um, but anyway, yeah, like I'm finishing up this little session here. I think it was about 45 minutes. The first three figures were already drawn before I started recording. I guess I've just said all I'm gonna say on that. If you want to support me, I'm currently working on the fourth issue of A Thousand Hells. I'm drawing it in normal comic format again. I'm finding that to be the better way to go about it, and then I transfer it to Webtoon. The last couple issues I tried to draw straight into Webtoon, and while that was easier in some ways, it was harder in others. And I think the results were interesting, but I actually I like drawing on the like the 11 by 17 page. I like having my wide panels and things like that. It's just something about laying out a full size page just makes me happier than drawing on like a long vertical strip. Anyway, thanks for listening. You can check out my webcomic A Thousand Hells. You can follow me on Instagram at Hobbs Makes Comics. You can like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. That'd be awesome. Give me a comment. I love hearing from people because I never hear from people. It's like sustenance, like coffee or something. And if you want to see some of my work besides my webcomic, you can go to Tumblr. Um, it's called When You Are Done spn.tumblr.com. It's a supernatural fan comic. It's about 25 pages of some of the best art I've ever done. It's a pretty I'm still proud of it. It's been a few years and I think it's some of the best work I've ever done. I would love to hear people tell me about it, and especially if you're a supernatural fan like I am. All right, take care. All the best. Maybe I'll be back sooner than 5 months.